Somewhere in America right now, someone is standing in a grocery store aisle, reaching past the tap water that costs essentially nothing, and placing a plastic bottle of water into their cart for $2, maybe $3, maybe more if it's an airport or a stadium or a hotel minibar. They're doing it because they believe, genuinely, completely believe, that what's inside that bottle is cleaner, purer, safer, and better than what comes out of their faucet at home. And the bottled water industry has spent billions of dollars making sure they believe exactly that. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most successful and least examined marketing operations in American consumer history. Because the truth about what's actually inside most bottles of water, where it really comes from, how it's actually regulated, what it actually contains, and how much it actually costs to produce versus what you pay for it, is a story that the companies selling you that water have worked very hard to keep quiet. Let's start with the most fundamental question. What are you actually buying when you buy a bottle of water? In many cases, far more cases than most consumers realize, you are buying tap water, municipally sourced, publicly treated, utility-distributed tap water. The same water that comes out of a faucet. Filtered, yes, processed in some cases, but originating from the exact same public water systems that your home water comes from. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented fact, publicly acknowledged by the companies themselves, if you know where to look. Pepsi's Aquafina brand, one of the best-selling bottled water brands in the United States. The source? Public water supplies. For years, the label said PWS in small print. Most consumers had no idea what PWS stood for. It stands for Public Water Source. In 2007, under pressure from advocacy groups, Pepsi agreed to change Aquafina's labels to more clearly state that the water originates from public water supplies. Coca-Cola's Dasani brand, same story. Dasani is sourced from local municipal water supplies, filtered through a process Coca-Cola calls hydrofiltration, and sold at a markup that can reach thousands of % over the cost of tap water. These are not small, obscure brands. Aquafina and Dasani are two of the most recognized and purchased water brands in America. And both of them are, at their source, tap water. Now, does filtering and processing that water change it? To some degree, yes. Reverse osmosis filtration and other purification processes can remove contaminants, adjust mineral content, and improve taste. The water that comes out the other end of that process is genuinely different from what went in. But here is the critical question that most consumers never ask. Different how? And better than what? The Environmental Protection Agency regulates tap water in the United States. The EPA sets strict standards for over 90 contaminants that public water systems are required to test for and report on. Municipal water suppliers are legally required to provide consumers with an annual water quality report, called a Consumer Confidence Report, detailing exactly what is in the water and at what levels. This is public information. You can look it up for your specific water utility right now. Bottled water, on the other hand, is regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, not the EPA. And the FDA's standards for bottled water are, in several important ways, less stringent than the EPA's standards for tap water. The FDA does not require bottled water companies to use certified labs for testing. It does not require bottled water companies to disclose the results of their water quality testing to consumers. It does not require bottled water to be tested for certain contaminants that tap water is routinely screened for. Let that sink in for a moment. The water coming out of your tap is subject to more rigorous, more transparent, and more publicly accountable regulation than the water you're paying premium prices for in a plastic bottle. The water you're told is purer and safer is, in many cases, subject to less oversight than the water you're walking past at the grocery store. And it gets more complicated, because in recent years, studies examining bottled water have found something that the industry would very much prefer not to discuss: microplastics. In 2018, researchers at the State University of New York at Fredonia conducted an analysis of bottled water from 11 major brands purchased in 9 countries. They tested 259 individual bottles. What they found was striking. 93% of the bottles tested showed signs of microplastic contamination. The average bottle contained about 10 plastic particles per liter that were large enough to be visible, and hundreds more microscopic particles that required special analysis to detect. Where do these microplastics come from? The plastic bottle itself, the caps, the industrial bottling process. As water sits in a plastic bottle, especially in heat, during transport, during storage in warehouses, tiny particles of plastic leach into the water. The very container that's supposed to be protecting the water from contamination is itself a source of contamination. And what do microplastics do inside the human body? The honest answer is that science is still working this out. But what research has established so far is not reassuring. Microplastics have been found in human blood, in human lung tissue, in human placentas, and in human breast milk. Studies in animal models have linked microplastic exposure to inflammation, hormonal disruption, and cellular damage. The World Health Organization has called for more research into the health impacts of microplastic ingestion. That research is ongoing, which means we are, in effect, running an uncontrolled experiment on the human population in real time. Meanwhile, the bottled water industry continues to market its products primarily on the basis of purity and health. Now let's talk about the economics, because the price gap between tap water and bottled water is not just large, it is almost incomprehensibly large when you actually do the math. The average American pays somewhere between $1 and $2 per 1,000 gallons of tap water. That's $1 to $2 for 1,000 gallons. Bottled water, purchased by the bottle at retail, typically costs somewhere between $1 and $3 per liter. There are about 3,785 liters in 1,000 gallons, which means that on a per-liter basis, bottled water can cost anywhere from 500 to over 1,000 times more than tap water. 500 to 1,000 times more, for a product that, in many cases, starts from the same source. The profit margins in the bottled water industry are extraordinary. The cost to a company like Nestle, Pepsi, or Coca-Cola to produce a bottle of water, including sourcing, filtration, bottling, labeling, and packaging, is a small fraction of the retail price. The majority of what you pay for when you buy a bottle of water is marketing, branding, the carefully constructed perception of purity, health, and premium quality that these companies have invested billions of dollars in creating. Think about the names: Evian, Poland Spring, Fiji Water, Crystal Geyser. These names evoke mountains, glaciers, springs, tropical islands. They evoke nature untouched by human infrastructure. They evoke exactly the opposite of a municipal water system. That is entirely intentional. The imagery on these bottles, the mountains, the waterfalls, the pristine blue backgrounds, is designed to sell you a feeling, an association, a belief. And in some cases, the premium brands, the genuinely spring-sourced waters, the artesian well products, there is more substance behind that imagery. Evian does come from a specific glacial aquifer in the French Alps. Fiji water does come from an artesian aquifer in Fiji. These waters do have distinct mineral profiles that differentiate them from processed municipal water. But even here, the story is complicated. Fiji Water, the brand that has perhaps most successfully marketed itself as the ultimate expression of pristine, untouched natural water, has faced its own controversies. The water comes from an island nation where a significant portion of the population does not have reliable access to clean drinking water. For years, the company reportedly paid minimal taxes to the Fijian government while extracting millions of gallons from the country's aquifer and selling it at premium prices to consumers in wealthy countries. The pristine, untouched, premium water brand was operating in a place where people were drinking contaminated water. The contrast is difficult to reconcile with the brand's marketing. And then there is Nestle. For decades, Nestle Waters, the division responsible for brands like Poland Spring, Deer Park, Arrowhead, and others, has been the subject of controversy and legal action related to its sourcing practices. In the American West, Nestle has extracted water from national forest land under permits that critics argue are outdated, inadequate, and not properly compensated. In Michigan, the company pumped millions of gallons from state water sources, paying remarkably little for the water itself, while local communities struggled with water access issues. Poland Spring, one of Nestle's most popular American brands, marketed as genuine spring water from the springs of Maine, was the subject of a class action lawsuit that alleged the water was not actually spring water as defined by FDA regulations, but was instead groundwater from sources that did not qualify as natural springs under the legal definition. The lawsuit was eventually settled, with Nestle agreeing to pay $200 million and make certain labeling changes, without admitting wrongdoing. Now let's talk about the environmental cost. Because beyond the economics and the regulatory questions, there is an environmental dimension to the bottled water industry that most people underestimate significantly. Americans purchase approximately 50 billion plastic water bottles per year. 50 billion. That is roughly 150 bottles per person per year for every man, woman, and child in the United States. And the recycling rate for plastic water bottles in America is approximately 30%, which means that roughly 35 billion plastic water bottles end up in landfills, in waterways, or in the environment every single year, just in the United States. Plastic water bottles are made primarily from a material called PET, polyethylene terephthalate. PET plastic does not biodegrade. It photodegrades, meaning it breaks down under sunlight not into harmless natural compounds, but into smaller and smaller pieces of plastic, into microplastics, which enter the soil, the water supply, the food chain, and ultimately, as we discussed, the human body. The production of those 50 billion bottles also requires oil. PET plastic is a petroleum product. The Pacific Institute estimated that producing the plastic for American water bottle consumption in a single year requires the equivalent of approximately 17 million barrels of oil, enough to fuel over 1 million cars for a year. That's before accounting for the energy used to fill, refrigerate, and transport those bottles across the country. And water extraction itself can have significant local environmental consequences. In drought-prone regions of California, where Nestle's Arrowhead brand has been particularly active, water is extracted from mountain springs during periods when those springs are critically low. Environmental groups and state regulators have raised concerns that commercial water extraction is reducing stream flows, affecting local wildlife habitat, and depleting water sources that communities and ecosystems depend on. So who is most affected by all of this? Who pays the biggest price for the bottled water economy? The answer, as is so often the case with environmental and consumer issues, is lower-income communities. And this reveals perhaps the most uncomfortable dimension of the entire bottled water story. In communities with compromised tap water, communities like Flint, Michigan, where a failure of government infrastructure resulted in catastrophic lead contamination of the public water supply, bottled water is not a lifestyle choice, it is a necessity. Families in Flint spent years buying bottled water for drinking and cooking because the water coming out of their taps was genuinely unsafe. In the absence of trustworthy public infrastructure, private bottled water became the only option. And low-income families, who are statistically more likely to live in areas with aging water infrastructure and less political power to demand infrastructure investment, are also the families who can least afford to replace free or nearly free tap water with $2 bottles. The bottled water industry profits most from the failure of public water systems, and the communities most harmed by those failures are the ones with the fewest resources to absorb the additional cost. Meanwhile, the existence of a premium bottled water market actively undermines the political will to invest in public water infrastructure. When affluent consumers opt out of the public water system entirely, buying bottles instead of drinking from the tap, they reduce their personal stake in the quality of public water. They have less incentive to advocate for infrastructure investment, and public water systems, which depend on political support and public investment, suffer as a result. This is a cycle that benefits the bottled water industry enormously, and it is a cycle that costs everyone else. So what should you actually do with all of this information? First, know what's in your tap water. Go to the EPA's website and look up your local water utility's Consumer Confidence Report. Read it. Understand what's in your water and at what levels. For the vast majority of Americans in communities with modern water infrastructure, tap water is safe, regulated, and tested more rigorously than the bottled water sitting on store shelves. Second, if you have concerns about your tap water's taste or specific contaminants, invest in a home filtration system. A basic activated carbon filter, like those made by Brita or PUR, significantly improves taste and removes common contaminants for a fraction of the cost of bottled water. More advanced under-sink reverse osmosis systems provide an even higher level of filtration. Either option, over time, is dramatically cheaper than buying bottled water and generates a fraction of the plastic waste. Third, invest in a reusable water bottle. A single high-quality stainless steel or glass water bottle, refilled from your tap or a filtered source, replaces hundreds or thousands of single-use plastic bottles over its lifetime. The math is simple. The environmental impact is significant. And finally, advocate for public water infrastructure. Clean, safe, publicly accountable tap water is one of the greatest public health achievements in human history. It is not inevitable. It requires investment, maintenance, and political will. Communities that have lost safe tap water, like Flint, demonstrate exactly what is at stake when that infrastructure is neglected. Supporting investment in public water systems is not just an environmental position. It is a public health position. It is an equity position. You are being sold water. Water that falls from the sky. Water that flows through the earth. Water that your tax dollars have already paid to treat and deliver to your faucet. You are being sold it back to you at 1,000 times the price, in a container that pollutes the environment, regulated less rigorously than what you're walking past. That is the bottled water industry's biggest secret, and now you know it. The next time you reach for that bottle, pause. Think about what you're actually buying. Think about what you're actually paying for, and then consider that the best, most regulated, least expensive, most environmentally responsible water in America might already be flowing right out of your kitchen faucet, waiting for you for almost nothing.